will
Okay.
be coming back halfway through this. Whether we want to have him join on too, up to you.
Sounds good. Here we go. This is Behind the Track. I am Charles McFall, Rock Out Podcasting, and I've got Xtina here from Agents of Damned. Or should I call you Leah? Leah? L-Y-A, Leah.
Yeah, Leah.
Leah.
It's a nickname that she goes by, one of many, but
it's you are a hippie mom. You spelled it L-Y-A just to be special.
Yeah, so her full name is Alicia, and so depending on who she's talking to, she goes by variations of the name. So,
all right, well, that's fair enough. I don't know why I started off trying to antagonize the witness. I apologize, Your Honor. So you here? What is Agents of Damned?
Yeah, so we are a D&D actual play podcast, and we started back in the height of the start of the pandemic, as many other podcasters did. And initially, we started off with myself as a different character, Wintera Dark Knight, our friend Katie as Saith Everjoy, and my spouse, Drew, as Dr. Arlo Aegon, because he loves puns. So think about that for a little bit, and you get dragon. But yeah, so we started off and where the Department of Adventure is maintaining normality and eradicating debacles. So the whole point of our crew is that we're trying to prevent calamity from happening, but whether we're successful is a different question. And campaign 2 is now DM'd by Drew, and we are sort of exploring the contractor side of things. So what happens when Damned can't handle all of the problems and they have to send in people to come help them do some of the shadier stuff that they have to take care of?
That sounds like fun. Now, what brought you to wanting to volunteer to be on Behind the Track?
So we saw a bunch of the other streams that you guys have done, and we've participated a little bit in the digital media track at DragonCon, and we just thought it sounded like a lot of fun, and we always enjoy participating where we can with the track.
And this year you got to you did 2 game nights, and then didn't you do an episode of your show live as well?
No, not a live episode of the show. We did the 2 game nights. So we did the Jackbox in character. So I did in character as Wintera. Drew came on as Arlo. Our GM from campaign 1, Jordan/Hoshi, came in as Post, who is his character from campaign 2. And then Chelsea, who is our artist for the show as well, she came in as her character from campaign 2. So we did that, and then the regular Jackbox that was not in character, and then we participated in the podcast/digital media track, the event where we talked about some of the stuff we wish we would have known on the cutting room floor was the title of it.
That's what it was. I knew you brought another one. And did you guys do well in the blood feud?
No, no, we did not. You win some, you lose some, and
didn't that happen last year too?
So we weren't on our own last year. I don't think we were helping out, so we weren't super great last year either. But we weren't by ourselves then, so it couldn't totally come to us for the blame. Ad Inc. had a little bit of the blame from last year, but this year was this year was an event, but it was fun.
What is for those who have not gone to DragonCon, the Blood Feud has become this almost regular event between D&D podcasts, live plays, if you will, and they do a Family Feud style contest, but it's fairly rigged.
A little bit. It's the judges can seem to be convinced in one way or the other, but it's all good fun. We're all great friends behind the scenes. At least I like to hope that we are. And it's a lot of fun, regardless.
But there's a punishment that goes with losing, isn't there? And what was that punishment?
This year it was some kind of grape wine vodka, I think. One of the previous years it was Malort.
Last year was Malort.
And it's been some interesting Oh, wait, no, so last year it was a grape wine vodka, the year before that it was Malort, this year it was, a salmon vodka.
Oh,
That's
gross.
yeah. Yeah, 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 it was
Oh,
interesting, to
that's
put it politely.
that's a polite way to put it, I'm sure. So that's just part of your Dragon Con story. What got you coming into Dragon Con in the first place?
We had gone with friends about, oh, 6 or 7 years back who had been going to Dragon Con, from our college, and they had convinced us to come down because 'cause we're along the East Coast as well, so it's not too far to get down there to Atlanta. For us, it's about a 4-ish hour drive from North Carolina. But,
Okay.
we'd started attending just because we had gone to local conventions up here in North Carolina and just sort of enjoy that scene, but had never been to something as big as Dragon Con. And so when our friends said, "Hey, we're going down, would you like to join us?" We figured, "Yeah, sure, we'll try it out, see how we like bigger conventions, if they are our thing or not." And we've been coming back ever since just because it's such a unique experience, and I truly don't think there's anything like Dragon Con just because where else are you gonna find 5 plus hotels ever
Mhm.
growing, it seems like, with the different things going on in each one of them, and just so many different groups of people, and you can find people who like everything there.
There is something for everybody.
Mhm.
What is one of your things at Dragon Con that you didn't think would
Gosh.
be?
Oh, the voice actors, honestly. I have always appreciated voice actors just because I like lots of different animations. And so getting to go to the panels where different people are showing up to do their own presentations was really fun. I'm horrible, horrible at remembering actors' names, but whenever there's a show that comes up, I'm like, hey, I watched that. I always like to go check out the different things. So I think one year it was a couple of the Steven Universe crew was there, and then not a voice actor, but just generally a digital media style actor from a couple of years ago was Once Upon a Time was present. So that was really cool. And then I'm a big sci-fi person, so getting to go to the Mythbusters style panel this past year was really cool. Um, but yeah, I am very much like a fantasy sort of nerd. So the gaming track has always been an interest to me, but less of the obvious. Those are the other ones that I enjoy.
I hear you. I hear you.
What about
You had
you?
mentioned going, oh, my favorite.
Yes.
The thing I didn't think it'd be into at Dragon Con, people, just
People.
so many people, so many people.
True.
But you know what? It's so many happy people. I mean, I
Mhm.
have I know there's some problems at Dragon Con, right? Things happen, but they do really. It's kind of like Disney. They do a really good job of getting it away from everybody and keeping the experience pleasant and safe. And just nobody is mean there, you know what I'm saying? It's not like going to Black Friday at Walmart. It's a ton of people, but you're sliding through, everybody's kind of making a way. Uh, until a whole bunch of Warriors sing the Peachy song in the middle of the Hilton, and then you can't get past.
Oh my
But
goodness. I
yeah,
saw that. That was interesting.
you know, and it is so many people, and when you get that many people together, you risk this kind of mass stupidity where people just don't wouldn't do things they normally do, right?
Mhm.
They'll stand in the middle of a doorway in Dragon Con when they would never do that anywhere else in their life, type of deal. And even then, it's not that bad. People keep unclogging it. People say stuff to each other fairly nicely. Um, but yeah, I don't like wandering around after say 9 because the drunk zombies are out and then it just smells because I'm not drunk at 9 o'clock. And yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, Dragon Con After Dark is its own experience, and you have to be willing to be a part of that to truly enjoy it. If you are not into that kind of a scene and you just wanna go to some of the cooler music shows at night,
Hmm.
it can be a little hard, but there are dances and music groups that are a little bit chiller, which is nice, so it's harder to find them, but they exist. So you don't necessarily have to be big into the party scene to enjoy Dragon Con too. Although, as a part of Dragon Con, it is just one big party.
Pretty much, right? Even it's your own version of party, right? For
Mhm.
us podcasters, it's sitting in an audience listening to other podcasters talk to us.
Yes.
Yeah, that's our kind of party. So yeah, there's always something there. So
Yeah,
you've
we
been yeah.
Like as a fellow podcaster, we started getting involved with the digital media track because we had attended both the Botched and the Ad Inc. cruise shows, the various panels they had started doing, and we were just like, "You guys are really cool people. How do we get involved in this? Because this seems really fun." And so that was sort of our step into things here.
So you started podcasting before you came to Dragon Con?
No,
You
uh,
came to Dragon Con before COVID
yes,
with some
yes,
friends. When did you get involved with the podcasting track? Was it after then you started podcasting?
right.
Okay.
Our podcast had already been going on, and that particular year, we I think it was the year that Dragon Con came fully back in person after COVID, so 2021 was when that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we had decided, "Hey, we've been doing the podcast thing for about a year now, a little over a year. Let's bring some stickers and other fun stuff from the show and just hand them out or do, one of the fun things that Dragon Con has is swide and seek, swag and
Swag
seek."
and Seek,
Yeah,
yeah.
swag and seek. So we just like, what if for part of our swag and seek, some of the stuff we put out are stickers of characters from the shows or other fun things from the show. And so that year we also had these little tiny cowboy hats because Arlo, my husband's character, is sort of like Texan Dragonborn. And so we were handing out little tiny cowboy hats to people, just like, what would you do for a cowboy hat was part of it. Um, and so we did a little bit of that at Dragon Con that year. And then when we were doing part of that, we ran into a couple people after the show from each of those respective shows and sort of got talking and developed what I would call like a con friendship. So
Sure.
yeah.
So talking about the first year, giving out the hats and the stickers and
Yes.
whatnot, how did that actually affect your show? Did you see any kind of uptick in people being interested in listening?
Oh yeah, every time we go to Dragon Con since we've done something similar, and we definitely see an increase in viewership. At least I'd say 20% increase in views. So it definitely does something. We
Nice.
so one of the things for actual play podcasts, especially D&D, from a 5e point of view, it's a very saturated market. So good views for an actual play that is podcast only and that doesn't have any sort of visual medium to it aside from anything you might share online. Uh, it's very easy to get overwhelmed when other people are sharing numbers, I've found out, and it's like, "Oh, yeah, we had 10,000 downloads in the first month." It's like, "Wow, your show is really great. You must have some awesome marketing and or got really lucky." Because for us, we recently crossed the 11,000 download border, and we've been doing this for 3 and a half, going on 4 years. But for us, that's great because 'cause it's been consistent. Consistent
Good.
but slow.
Good. No, I mean that is solid. That is good. And it doesn't sound like y'all do it to be professional. You do
Right.
it because you like doing what you're doing.
Yes, mostly for fun. We would love if it eventually became something where it was like, "Yeah, this is what we do. This is our whole thing." But for now, for us, it's mostly the fun part of it and how do we continue learning this fun skill of being in the digital marketing space and putting out something that people are enjoying.
Aside from the entertainment this past year, what was one of the biggest things you got out? Like a panel. What was one of the biggest things you learned?
Ooh, just in general learned or
I mean,
that
so
I
a motivational
personally
moment, just something
learned?
you went, "Oh man, that was my moment at Dragon Con."
Gosh, so many.
You
I
can pick
think
2 or 3 or 4. It's your show. What do you want?
I think okay, so it was, I believe, Adam Savage is the Mythbuster who was doing several
Yes.
in-person
Mhm.
panels. And so hearing him talk about things related to the Mythbusters production and other productions that have been put on was probably one of the most enlightening experiences I've ever seen, just because someone who has been part of such a popular show, like having moments where even he was just like, "Oh man, how are we going to make this work? What are we going to do here?" was really nice to hear. It's just like everyone goes through that.
Yeah, that reality of production.
Yes. Um, but other than that, just like being able to take in the enjoyment of everyone else's panels that they were putting on was always really fun and enlightening. We just like to be able to experience things.
Have you had any good fan interactions at Dragon Con?
We have made fans of people, which has been really interesting, where we've met someone and then they've gone back to their hotel room and they've said, well, we really like this, so we're gonna keep listening, and, this sounds really cool, we're definitely gonna pick up the show, and we'll talk a little bit more about it. So getting to have people where it's not necessarily for us at this point, someone who's come back and been a returning fan, but people we've turned into fans at the con has been really fun. We've
That's
had people
cool.
join our personal Discord and start chatting over there just from Dragon Con, and that's always a really fun experience. It's like, "Hey, we met these guys here. It's really cool, and how do we keep going on and listening to the show and commenting on stuff back?" Because a lot of our interactions on Discord with people is just general personal things. Like, hey, how's your day going? What's going on? Here's a cool gaming idea we have, or general TTRPG conversation. Because one of the things that we wanted to be really in depth about is not just our show. We wanted to build actual conversations with people.
Okay.
So, in order to talk about our show on our Discord, you have to actually opt into it, since we know that not everyone's going to want to be a fan of the show, but also talk about the show. And so, if someone's talking about the show, for one, we don't want them to be spoiled. So, that part of the opt in is there are going to be spoilers here. Um, but also, don't feel like you have to be a good listener of the show to be friends with us and to hang out here, because we've done crossovers with other shows where we've invited them to our Discord. Feel free to come hang out with us, but you don't have to be actually interactive after the fact. And so it's been really nice getting to just further and build out our friendships with people online that way. One of the friendships that we ended up making, especially over the pandemic, started because of a funny poll that they had tagged us in online. So back before the whole downfall of Twitter, we someone had tagged us in a poll, who's now a good friend of ours from the Bard Rock Cafe, now Bard Rock Network, and they said, "Hey, between you and another show, who's the real big fan? Like, who has better fans here?" And so this was in 2021, before Dragon Con, I think, was when the poll had started. And I got the notification for it. At the time, I was fully remote work from home, and they said, "Wow, we're losing real bad in this. Let me." So I'm also a member over on a podcasters Discord server, and I messaged all my friends over there who listened to the show, and I was like, "Guys, help! What do we do?" And so they were helping to share it, and we ended up winning by the smallest margin possible. But then it was really fun because we ended up doing a three-way crossover with that show and the Bard Rock show. And we've been friends with the Bard Rock Network ever since. And I actually GM a stream for them now on alternate
Okay.
days from an alternating part of their extended universe called the Space Rock Cafe. So it's been really fun seeing how something that started as a simplistic Twitter poll turned into hopefully lifelong friendships.
That sounds awesome.
Mhm.
It also sounded like Drew came in but didn't
It
want to sit
did.
down. I
Well,
see how
he
it is.
he he
No, it's
brought
okay.
in dinner, so he has to go put that in the kitchen first, but
So
he
he's sitting there eating in front of you. So that's what I would do. I'd eat in front of you.
yeah, he decided to bring in the pizza, so
I'll wait till he gets. I got a question for that. So you mentioned that you've been part of other cons or gone to other cons up in the North Carolina area, I'm assuming.
yes.
What are some of the cons that you visited up there?
Mostly, honestly, the anime style conventions. So there's one that's close to us called Ichiban Con that we've been to several times. There's one, Heroes Con is like a comic book convention. That one's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I've heard of Heroes kind of thing.
Yeah, it's growing every year. I feel like it's making traffic horrible, but it's still fun. Stan Lee had come to that one when he was still alive, but that one's a lot of fun to see what people are doing there. We actually got our wedding rings from a group at Heroes Con because they were a jeweler, a local jeweler, and so we came up to them. And they said, "Do you do wedding rings that are styled in the look of Green Lantern or the Lantern rings?" So Drew and I have matching Lantern Core rings because of Heroes Con.
Let's
Because
see.
I
Let's
had told him
see.
that year. So this is, if it will focus, my ring.
All right.
I don't know if it'll focus.
Yeah, let me jump it in.
Kinda.
Will it like mess up the format?
I can't get it. But anyway, mine's an indigo ring. And then his is a red lantern ring, which if it will focus on my ring on the bottom, he has matching. It might be easier to see on his. Yeah, here, let me grab. So his is, oh gosh, red lantern.
So he went. Isn't red the anger one?
Yes, and he might be able to speak a little bit more about it because it's really his fandom. But I told him if you can find non-plastic rings, we can do lantern rings.
Those looked really good. It
Yeah.
looks like you went slightly more than plastic on that.
Yes, they're I think silver, but yeah, no, they're really nice. But anyway, we've done Heroes Con, and then up in Raleigh, there's one called Animazement that happens every year, and that was the one that when I started going to bigger conventions, Animazement was the one that I started going to because of Drew. Actually, we had an anime club at our school that sort of like all of us would go every year to Animazement, and so it was always a lot of fun.
That's cool. So obviously that's part of what Dragon Con is to you too.
Mhm.
So what has blown your mind on the anime track?
Ooh, what's blown my mind on the anime track? Honestly, okay. One year, and like I said, I'm horrible at remembering people's names. So even if I really enjoy them as creators, I don't know why, but people's names specifically never stick in my brain. She's voiced so many different things, and she is a Tara Strong.
Tara Strong.
Yes, Tara Strong. Yeah. So getting to see her talk to her fans and just the absolute enthusiasm that she shows for people is
Yeah.
it makes you want to cry. Like, honestly, she is just such a genuinely caring person about the fandoms that are created because of the characters and the people that she has voiced. And I hope that I have as much grace as it seems like she does. And then one of the other cool animation experiences that I got to see. Who is the other voice actress that we met? And she's not just a voice actress for Garnet. Estelle, yes. Estelle is also very, very genuine and cares deeply, it seems like, about her fans. So it's the people behind the animation that always really does it for me. Like, obviously, I love digital art, and getting to experience it while it's happening is one thing, but then getting to see the people behind it is a completely other experience that I just absolutely love.
I think it was 2018, 2019, somewhere in there. Maybe in 2018. Anyway, there was an uptick in voice actor panels that
Mhm.
year. And we had a couple, but we did a panel in that little Galleria 6 room with Tara Strong
Oh, wow.
and oh man, I could have said it till I try to say it. He does a lot of voices. He was Gorilla Grodd in The Flash, and he was Groot and Rocket and Groot. David Sobolov. David
Mm.
Sobolov was there, and Symphony Sanders from it's a podcast. I know people listening to it are just screaming at me right now, but it's the science podcast. That's a mystery show. I cannot remember it now. Doesn't matter. But anyway, it's really cool to have those kind of voices in a small room and talk to each other and those kind of things. So let's kind of talk about your pathway. So you started coming to Dragon Con, you started podcasting, and after that. Well, actually, you know what? A question I wanted to ask before all that was, did you listen to podcasts before you started doing Agents of Damned?
Yes, but not in the way that I think I do now. I would occasionally find various podcasts, like an episode here or an episode there. And yeah, so I would find an episode here, an episode there of something that I enjoyed. And obviously Drew's joined us now. But I wouldn't really be as into following along with serial podcasts as I am now. So I'd be like, I want to listen to someone talk about this event. So like NPR style podcasts or news podcasts. But it wasn't things like actual plays. So things like NADPod that I would be into, although that was something that Drew was really into. So I did, but not to the extent that I think I do now.
Okay.
Drew might have a different answer as far as whether or not he listened to more podcasts before we started podcasting.
Well, do you, Drew?
Oh, yeah. I had like a fair amount of podcasts that I like do still like listen to. I mean, like there's the classic ones of like a lot of people love Bim Bam. I'm a huge Bim Bam fan. Along with like of course Adventure Zone. Really love NADPod. Just like like I was always been like pretty well into like the whole like D&D podcast scene, and even outside of that, just like haven't done like a good deal of like like overnight work or like jobs where like you want to keep yourself occupied without being distracted. A lot of like auditory entertainment there. So podcasts were always something that I really, really enjoyed. And then we started up the Agents of Dan podcast, and it was mainly like just kind of we played some D&D after we've been playing. I had been playing for like a while, but like a group of the group that became the main cast, like we had met up, we did like a first session, and we were like, we're kind of funny. And I started.
Well, that's cool. Now, to your Green Lantern ring, you didn't want to go with Blue Hope, or so that you went with red, and that's like next to black being one of the worst colors, I thought.
So this is gonna sound like big time, like I'm 14 and this is deep, but it's a legitimate like one. I think Red Lanterns are just like cool. They've got a cool power set. I think they're just kind of metal. But on the other side of that, it's also like I think Xtina is a reminder of like, or like not a reminder, but like a show of like who she is like as a person. Mine is like a reminder of like I was a shitty teen. As a lot of people were. I was a shitty teen, and it's like a reminder of like don't be that like shitty teen again. So it's like a little thing, like it's both a wedding ring, but like a little thing on my hand where I'm feeling like, I could be a jerk, but I shouldn't. I should not be a jerk. Just be nice. I'm naturally a jerk, and I try to not be.
You know what? I can relate. I think a lot of people can relate to that. So I get it. So the question I have for both of you, that it's time to address elephant in the room. Is there any truth to the rumor that you're trying to get botched, kicked out of Dragon Con so you can take that Sunday night spot? Just
No, certainly not.
No, we're trying to get them kicked out of Dragon Con because they keep beating us at Blood Feud.
and they're the ones who make sure they bring the worst alcohol as punishment. It is not good.
Oh, that we met botched as like we were there like already like as like a podcasters. We already like had like a decent enough like relationship with Ad Inc. and like so we kind of got like introduced to botched through them. And we had just gone to like one of their shows, and we're kind of like hanging out a little bit. And at the end of the show, they offered like anyone else who wanted to try it to try the punishment alcohol of that year. And that was the year they had brought Malort. And I don't know if you've ever had like the undeserved confidence of like, day 2/3 of Dragon Con. You've kind of been like day drinking the whole time. But that's what kind of got me. It was just like I'll try it. I can do anything. I don't care. It's like, it can't be that bad. It is that bad. It's so bad.
That bad. Yes.
It's that bad. It's like, it's that, like, like the smell of gasoline, and like, it smells like kind of good, but like if someone like put it like in a cup in front of you, you'd be like, no, I shouldn't drink that. I shouldn't put that in my human body. That's Malort.
I saw an ad earlier for thick Malort.
Hey, no. I don't like those words you said. I don't like those words you said.
No. No. So I was in Chicago for Pokemon Go Fest, and
Ooh,
Joe
nice.
and I were there, and we were doing a show, Pokemon Go podcast at the time. And so we met up with some other podcasters at this bar in Chicago after I think it's it was the night before. Anyway, we're all out there kind of have fun. Different listeners of the show are there. 3 different podcasts are there. And I'm talking to some people, and one of the other podcast hosts came up and tapped me on the shoulder, like, hey, if I buy you a shot, will you drink it? I don't do shots typically, but my favorite alcohol is free alcohol. So I didn't ask the question. I went, yeah, I will. And then he turns around and he's like, this is Malort. I'd only heard how bad it was. By that point, I had the shot in my hand. Everybody does, and he's doing a toast. I'm like, you son of a bitch. And, I go on with the show. It's what I do. And I already said that I drank it. And that was the worst drink I've ever had in my life. The next morning, Joe and I had to get up and drive the 14 hours back from Chicago. And for the first hour and a half, I was burping and tasting that Malort. It just, it was bad. And that was 12, 13 hours later. It was, it's the worst. It's the worst. I always tell people, do not trust botched. Don't go anywhere near them. It is not for human consumption. And yet they still do really, really well at Dragon Con because there's a lot of people who have that.
They're an incredibly fun group.
Yes, don't trust botched with alcohol. However, they're incredible people and you can trust them as humans. Just not with the alcohol they're giving you.
That's maybe true. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know if I'd let them watch my kids or anything, but you know.
I mean, they'd learn a bunch of new swear words, but your kid would still be alive. Probably.
Probably. If they didn't roll a one, they might be okay. So Drew, I got a little bit of the podcast story, a little bit of the Dragon Con story, but for you personally, what drew you? What's your fun part of Dragon Con? What keeps you going back there?
Oh, God, that's a hard one to pick because it's kind of like everything. Like I've frequently called Dragon Con my vacation from normalcy. Like I live for like every part of it. Like I love cosplay. Like I love to cosplay and like watch other people's like cosplay. I love the panels. I love getting to meet like people like the industry. I love getting like it's also like almost like it feels almost like a summer camp sometimes. Like you'll run into people that you knew from previous years that you don't see like any other time, and you're just like, oh shit, hey, and like you have a year's worth of like catching up to do, and that's always kind of fun. It's just like top to bottom, I absolutely freaking love Dragon Con. Since the very first year I went, it was just like I had been to cons before, but it was the biggest thing I had ever seen. And like the con culture is so like well defined. Like there's like the swag and sync that people are doing. There's the cult of the carpet. There's just, like it's just so fun. It's just so fun. And there's like that added layer of like if I'm in a line. Like if I'm in a normal line in day-to-day life, I'm just like, I'm getting a coffee. I can't lean over the other person and be like, you want to talk about Spider-Man? Like I can't do that, but I can at Dragon Con. I can I can chat up a random person about like, no one like really appreciates Spider-Man Unlimited, and I feel like that's kind of like really downplaying that entire series, and that can just be a conversation. That's not weird.
I'm not a big people watcher. I'm not a big people person, surprisingly. But I still don't want to talk to somebody when I'm in line getting my coffee, but I like overhearing the conversations that people are having in line, getting coffee. And I don't mind sitting down and just watching the people go by with the different costumes and different things they're talking about. So that can be fun. What's the scariest thing about Dragon Con?
That's an interesting one. I think I think the scariest thing about like Dragon Con is like if we're going from like the perspective of like if it's like your first con is just like the scope of it. It almost has like that feeling of like a sheltered kid goes to college for the first time and there's like the amount of freedom and free roam you have is just like, all right, go. You're like, what's going on? What's happening? So it's like it's almost like the decision paralysis of it. I think is like the scariest part, but it's also kind of the coolest part of it because like your first con. I feel like if anyone is like looking at this like before their first con or like in preparation for the first con, accept that your first con is going to be like slightly a disaster because you're getting your footing. You're like learning how to con. You're gonna miss like some things that you meant to go to.
Yeah.
You gotta get in line.
Yeah, you gotta get in line, and you gotta like but like I think that like that scary part turns into like the coolest part, like like your second con because your second con you've got a plan now. Now you know what's up, and now you're just like, oh okay, like now I know like I gotta get to this like a little bit earlier there. I know I gotta make sure I download the app. I'm not just gonna be like, it'll be fine. Like you don't make the rookie mistakes. I went on a huge tangent on that one. That'll be a running theme, but Xtina should talk about.
Listen, one thing that people will learn about our podcast is that part of my job is keeping Drew in line, whether he is the DM or a player. And so if I'm not around to keep him in line, then that just kind of keeps going. And so sometimes it's really fun for me to just not interrupt and just see where he goes because it's truly like he's not in control. But honestly, I do think it's the FOMO. You don't want to miss out on so many things, and it's so easy to accidentally not know what you're doing. And if you're too new to Dragon Con, be like, I'll just get in line an hour early for this panel. Well, that panel is for one of the most popular people to show up. You should have been in line an hour and a half to 2 hours ago, because they will start. The technical rule is an hour ahead, but it's really when the last track beforehand ends, and then they can let you start lining up or into the official line. So it's like every single thing has its own little difference. So keeping up with various social media areas for Dragon Con, it can be a lot and it can be intimidating. And learning how to navigate that is really, honestly, its own level of scary. So I really do think that combined with how everything works is one of the most intimidating and horrifying things about Dragon Con. But it's also one of the most fun things, because you're not going to find that anywhere else.
And it helps if you meet or go with somebody who has been there before to kind of guide you. Talking about not understanding how Dragon Con works. The first year I went, I was just kind of flipping through and looking. It's like, oh, Fraggle Rock. Yeah, that's kind of cool. I remember that as a kid. And I'm thinking nobody is going to be in the puppets. I've never met anybody in my life that cared about the Muppets or puppets or anything outside of Dragon Con.
You fool.
So, right. I was there. I was like, man, I think I'll go down and check it out. And I go down, start to reach for a door, and an official volunteer, whatever, so I said, you can't. This fellow's like, no, I'm just here for Fraggle Rock. Like, yeah, it's full.
It's full. Like, everybody loves Fraggle Rock.
And I mean, the wheels
out of Fraggle Rock.
What? And it was original voices of Gobo and Red. Were there. That's what I was trying to go see. But it just, nobody in my world gave a crap. So I'm like, I could not process the fact that it was a full room and it's closed and I can't go in. And yeah, I ran into that a few times that year and learned, well, I guess if I really want to check out this panel, I need to go get in line 2 hours before the panel starts.
Yeah.
But it's a mess. You guys ever play the games? Did you go to the gaming hall?
Oh yeah, always.
So are you one of those overnight, like you'll play 3 or 4 in the morning on a board game because you forget what time it is, like a casino crew?
Not quite. We're kind of like our group is kind of we like to do like a little bit of like everything. Like we do a little bit of panels, we do a little bit of people watching, a little bit of just kind of like hanging out. We do a little bit of like the games, like the game area. We as far as like the night scene, we love a lot of like the parties and stuff that go on there. That's also like part of the whole like vacation from normalcy thing. And that is like all right, like panels and discussing fandoms by day, and then just like kind of vibing and prowling around at night to see like seeing where the night takes us. But absolutely love like the game area, both like the tabletop and like the video gaming like areas there. Just absolutely pristine in prime. I'm real nice with it on like that what is that, like that Taikyo like drum game.
Yeah.
Some of that doom 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 doom.
What about you, Christina? What was one of your favorite games to experience?
We very much are into the video game area that they have every year, so we always check out the games that are there. I love rhythm games, whether it's the dance style games or the drum style games. So I don't think I have a favorite of them, but I do enjoy all of them. As far as the tabletop games, I'm really particular about the group I play with because I prefer to know the people I'm playing with. So I don't actually think I can say I've experienced any of the games at Dragon Con. But that's just because as someone who is female presenting in that space, sometimes it can be a challenge to find a group that you feel like you actually mesh with and feel safe playing with. And so I prefer to have groups that I know at least one other person in. And so that's one of the only reasons I haven't actually gotten into playing any games at Dragon Con.
That makes sense. Some people can get way more serious than others about a game. Or you'll go the other way and be so loose that they just don't care about the rules, and that's not fun either. I like their system. The game system, or at least for the board games, is you turn in for $5 you buy a game membership, so you get a little sticker or whatever. You give them your license, and you pick from hundreds of games that are there. But then it takes an hour to learn how to set it up and do the rules. If you've never played it. And then, and by the time you're starting to play, your butt's hurting on the metal seats. At least that was my experience. So I stick to the digital media track for the most part. We had comfy seats down there. So Drew, what was your best experience on the digital media track this year?
Ooh. All right, that was a lot. It was a lot of fun that happened. I think like this past year, honestly, like we've been like involved in like other people's like panels and whatnot before, but this was our first year like top to bottom running our own panels, and I'm not gonna lie, like I love like running our own panels. Like I have had many like public speaking like almost like performative based jobs. So like going on top of like going on like a stage and like doing like crowd work and stuff. I'm like like it's I'm not gonna say like oh it's easy, anyone can do it. It's like I'm practiced enough that it's not like a big thing, but I'm gonna get slightly sappy. I think the coolest part was like watching my wife like kind of shift into like this uh what's the word I'm looking for, but this like very like focused like but joyously like focused like almost manic mode while we're like getting everything prepared, and that like I don't know, I like I don't know if this is a controversial opinion, but I like my wife and I think she's neat. And I liked seeing her like go at something so passionately. Just kind of like just one of the behind the scenes thing that were going on with the digital media track is that like I loved seeing my wife just so freaking happy.
Get in the zone.
We were like like getting in the zone and so happy. And I was like yeah, my heart.
Oh, you.
Yeah, whatever.
Her answer earlier was the hot dogs. That was her favorite part. But you're nicer. You're sweeter. It's okay.
The hot dogs are good though.
No. So you guys hosted 3 panels. 2 were game shows or Jackbox games. Another was one you pitched yourself. How do you feel like those 2 were definitely? Let's talk about the game shows separately from the cutting room floor panel. Let's talk about the cutting room floor panel. How did you think it went?
Well, actually, that one is more like Xtina's brainchild, so I don't want to like bogart that one. I want her to like take lead.
Okay, so I was really excited when we got to have other people on the panel that we had no idea who they were when we went into that, but it was really cool getting to hear other people's experiences as well in something that is so unifying. Everyone sort of goes through, to different degrees, these same problems when you have behind the scenes, what gets cut and how sort of things. And so being able to look out into the crowd at that panel and see everyone looking in, but knowing that even if they're at that panel and they're getting advice from us, they're going to go through the same problems and they're going to see it. But at least they have hopefully taken something from that panel and can now use it. So when they inevitably come up with something of a problem, when they are like, I'm faced with this problem, I have to now either cut it or re-record it or whatever, I have ideas on how to go about dealing with it. And so knowing that being a part of that was something that was created because of this panel was really exciting and really cool, because I moderate for a podcaster Discord community. And so part of over there is doing very similar things. And so being able to be a source of a voice, even if it's not myself, it's other people, and having those people around was really exciting. And I think that based off of how many people had showed up, even if the ratings weren't necessarily there because of the Dragon Con app, I think that people at least took something out of that. And so in and of itself, that was a successful part of it.
All right, cool. What is, these are just general questions. What is something you would do better next time or differently?
There's always more prep you could do. I don't think that you could ever do enough prep to do more for a panel. So I would honestly just go into it with a different idea on the questions that are going to be asked of the panelists and how we think about answering that. I would love to have an even more diverse crowd than what we had for the answers this year. And I think that could be a really good way to have similar panels, but different panels be even more successful. Obviously, bigger names bring in bigger crowds, but just different experiences overall.
I gotcha. Okay, so what about the Jackbox games? How do you guys think that went?
That one I'll let Drew answer.
So you did one Thursday night. So we had to do programming Thursday night. So we did a handful of things and tried to make a bunch of different things. So we had a comedy show, we had a meet and greet, and then we had the Jackbox game going on there. So Thursday night is a brand new night for the last 2 years at Dragon Con. But you also did one on Saturday night, I think it was.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Friday or Saturday night. So you did one more of a con night. So the opening one, you can compare the two. Is all I'm saying is how'd they go for you?
I think like they both went well in different ways. The first one was more like we were getting used to like getting like all like the stuff set for like the the project stuff on like the screen. There was a little like miscommunication as far as like us and like other podcast members about like which games we were playing and like which ones to have prepped. And we had no idea like how to play the game that we ended up picking. But that kind of like came around full circle to like so ridiculous that it was good because everyone was having a great time watching us flounder about. We're like, what do I do with this drawing? And the second one was just good in the traditional sense, and that we played some TKO and Quiplash, which are just like absolute like classics there. I will again kind of like moving it back, I can do some like some fun crowd work, and I think everyone enjoyed like the crowd work, and that I'm pretty like we all have our different talents. Xtina is good at almost everything else, and I'm the goofball who make the fart sounds and whatnot. But she's looking at me because she knew that there was a recurring bit that I did, and that I was like, all right, so we got an entire audience here. I'm not sure if I can please the entire audience. So
and I don't know if you can talk about this bit on Twitch.
I would pick one person.
After 10 p.m. sort of bit.
All right. I would pick one person, and I'm like, all right, you're the gauge of how we're doing, and I'll pick that person. And I'll make sure that I'll like, you can fully like opt out of this. I'm gonna be a good sport.
That's not the bit I was thinking of, but that did also happen.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. No, that was a different bit. That's definitely not good for Twitch right now. I was talking about like this is just picking an audience gauge and just because of the times that both of them happened, everyone was kind of like a little bit in their cup. So I'd be like, how's everybody doing? It doesn't matter how you're doing. James, how are we doing? Like, this is a fun little bit. I like that bit. Little bits and jokes.
All right, so that was the first night y'all were getting things wound up. And then the second night you did it in character. And how'd that go?
Very fun as far as the games. But oh god, that Arlo costume was hot and uncomfortable. Like that dragon mask is just so much. So we were doing the podcast for a while, become a Dragon Con for a while. The idea of going to Dragon Con like in costume as our characters has been floated before. And every time I have done my best to swat it down because of everyone. I had the character that I was like, I know it's gonna be a pain because mine is a dragon man. And so it's either going to involve a big old dragon mask that's going to be uncomfortable, or like monster movie makeup, which will be uncomfortable. This point through, I was like, we're doing like a Jackbox panel in character. I was like, I cannot get around this.
You didn't have to. You could have done any of the potential NPCs from campaign 2.
We weren't far enough that anyone knew any of them.
All right. So I do remember coming in on that night towards the end and highly regretting it, because whatever the bit that was going on is a game where you had to design t-shirts, and every answer had some variation on serpents and other things. And I was like, okay, maybe that's just one round. Then the next round came out, they're like, yeah, I'm gonna go wait out in the hall. I don't even understand what's going on. It's going off the rails. So
it was a bit that just kept going, and so here's what happened. Like I'll admit that I started it. It went so far outside of my hands. Far outside of my hands.
Like the Chicago fire, man. You might be trying to light a cigarette, but the whole town's burning now.
Yes.
Yep. It's like the Great Chicago. I'm the cow that knocked over the lamp. And I just looked over like, that's probably fine. And it wasn't. It ended up being kind of not fine.
But it was
so
fun.
What's something you guys would do better for the game shows?
Not that answer.
Well, I don't know. So I was like, oh, we're not doing that again. I was like, well, let's not say never. I'm definitely, like, if we do in character again, we're definitely doing more comfortable versions of the costumes. Like, we're definitely going to, like, that's going to be a communication thing of, like, all right, look, we're going to do this much work for the costumes to make sure they're not uncomfortable and make sure none of us look ridiculous.
Just the hi, my name is blank kind of shirts.
Mm-hmm. Or like we're
How
gonna
about
do
you
it like comfy this time.
You just make up shirts that have a blank D&D character sheet on them, and just you haven't re-rolled your new characters yet. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Easy. So, Drew, I'd asked Xtina earlier if she'd listened to podcasts before doing a podcast. I'll ask you that. Were you into podcasts and things before you started doing Agents of Damned?
Oh yeah, I think I like kind of talked about this in one of my random rants a bit earlier, but like I've loved like a great number of podcasts and whatnot, but yeah, like a lot like both like non D&D and D&D based podcasts. Like I said, huge fan of Bim Bam, The Adventure Zone. Huge fan of like Nad Pod.
Is it La Bim Bam?
Because I'm sorry, my brother and me.
Oh,
the McElroys.
I thought it had to be in that. I was like, it doesn't sound like you listen to any shows that have a full word in there. Nah show, the Bim Bam show, the Hoogly Googly. I don't know. You just listen to all these shit. But I got you. My brother. Yeah.
Yeah. So I will sometimes just kind of like just get going and realize that I've not said anything that is an English word.
Xtina, I was about to ask Xtina how that works around the house, but she made a face. So we'll move on.
It doesn't.
You were married for as long as we've been, and sometimes you just start to understand innately what those weird things that aren't actual words mean.
I've got an actual like story about that. This is from like a couple months ago. It was like we were sitting in the car and we were talking about like what we're gonna like do, like that pre like like about to like head out and run errands, like talking like how we're doing this, but this, and like it's like a weekend morning. I'm unmedicated and like I'm still like a little like loopy. And like in reference to the thing she's saying, I just go, bah. And she goes like, all right, and then we keep going. And then a couple minutes later, I go, that didn't mean anything. How did you understand that meant like that was affirmative in any way? I didn't even go like, ah. I said, bah. And
she just took a yes for a yes.
It was yes. That's what freaked me out. I was like, wait a minute. There was nothing discernible about that. How did you know? And just I don't know.
Yeah.
So how long have you been married?
2017. So we've been married 6 years. We've been together 14.
Yes.
14.
I don't even know to go with those numbers. So you were
started dating back in
14
high school.
Total. So y'all went to high school. You dated in high school.
Mm-hmm.
Got out of high school, and Drew was just bah.
And
you should wrote it out for 7 years.
Bat is different. Bat is different. It's bah.
Get it right.
Okay. So y'all were together and married long before you started doing the show.
Yes.
Does any of your, like, if you're in a moment where you're irritated with each other or something's going on that's on your brain, does that make it into the show even by accident sometimes? Like, I did not roll a botch, Drew. You rolled a botch. I don't know. Does it play in at all? Does it ever seep in?
No, okay, so honestly, we have done a really good job, I think, of trying to avoid any kind of table bleed. If there is the chance that table bleed happens, we try to talk about it, whether it's between me and Drew or any of our other players or DM from Campaign 1. And if there's a situation where we're like, hey, this isn't quite working because of some other kind of real life conflict that is happening, because people are people and you're going to have butt heads every so often. We've done a really good job, I think, of trying to resolve that so it doesn't make its way into the show. There's been times where something has happened in the show, and I think we may have discussed this on the cutting room floor panel, I can't quite remember, where something happened in character or at the table because of some sort of ruling, and we came sort of not to blows, but it did create conflict out of game later. And so we were able to resolve those things and come back and make a plan of action because communication is important. And without communication, then you're going to have times where things break down and then you have actual problems, and that might get left in if you weren't paying attention. But we do our best not to let that sort of seep over because we don't want anyone feeling uncomfortable. If there's ever a time where we are showing each other like, hey, we're mad at each other, it's generally acting, and we are leaving that in on purpose because we want to play up a bit. There is an episode recently where we left in a moment where I sort of fussed at some of our friends that are also listeners of the show. And I was like, by the way, guys, this is 100% a bit and I'm playing that up. I'm not actually mad at you for this. Please don't take it that way. But, you know, we always try to make sure that it's only the actual moments where it's like a joke. If both people aren't laughing, it's not a joke.
Fair enough.
I don't know if Drew has any moments where he thinks that we have left out, but...
Nah, I mean, like especially if we're talking about between like us two, like there have been like a couple of moments like, you know, inter podcasts, and it's unavoidable when you like if you work with more than one person, it is unavoidable that there'll be like, you know, times where you disagree. We've had times where like we've had like disagreements in between like different members of the table, but we're pretty good about communication and like solving those disagreements like outside of like the recording and such. And sometimes we'll even like discuss disagreements like during like the after show just to like give that to give that like insight into like the process of things, and that like, hey, like we don't just work like a perfect well-oiled machine and never argue and never fight, because that makes people feel bad about when they have to like argue or have a fight with someone. So we do leave like some of that in like, you know, not in the actual like product, but in like the stuff that's purposefully like behind the scenes, and be like, hey, like, you know, I really didn't like that, but it's always like an open and honest way. But that's kind of like across the table overall. I don't want to sound like I'm gloating, but Xtina and I think are like the most like in sync as far as like members of the table. But I think that kind of just comes with like the fact that we are married, although like the dynamic's a little bit different now, and that like now the cast is both me and Xtina and Jordan and Chelsea, who are also a married couple. So it's just like it's a double date every time we record. But I think that's also kept a lot of like because we've always had that very smooth dynamic, there's like a double smooth dynamic that kind of smooths things out even further. And like a lot of it has been like having like regular meetings about like what we expect out of like the podcast and like how much time we expect to like put into it, which has also made things like a lot like smooth this time through. So like not a lot of like instances of like a fight that kind of carried over into or outside of like the game, especially if we're talking about like just between like me and Xtina. Like we, again, not trying to like gloat, I guess, but like we don't argue that often, and if we do, it's usually like if we had like an argument, it's like about something like important, and it usually is like it's coming from like some manner of like a place of love. I think our most, if I don't want to like out, like our most recent argument was maybe like I was upset because Xtina had like rushed out into something and like put herself in danger. I was like, don't do that, you can hurt yourself. And that's the content of our most recent argument. So we're both sweet little beans, I think. Well, Xtina's a sweet little bean, and I did not call myself a sweet little bean. That's not recorded. No one can prove
canon.
That.
It is 100% canon now.
No, nope. All right,
someone else. A clip of that.
Please don't.
Hold on. We got you, Drew.
Oh,
boy. All right, hold on a second. Now I'm gonna roll. I got a D20 here. Go high or low?
Low.
All right, you're not a sweet little bean. It was a 4.
Yeah, I win. I get what I want.
So what is, as we get ready to kind of wrap up here, and we'll do promotions here in a second, what's something different you'd like to see on the digital media track? Or even in the content that we create throughout this year coming up?
That's an interesting question.
More game nights are always fun.
Game nights are really fun. I do love us a good game night. I don't know, the most fun I have are like both at like the live shows, like the live like live like D&D play shows, and like just like to Xtina's credit, like the game nights, like the Jackbox games or like Blood Feud or like just stuff like that. Especially when you get to have like that interaction between like two different like creator groups, both on like the audience, like as someone who has been both like in the audience and like on the stage, it's really cool like as an audience member to be like, oh, that's kind of cool, especially if you're a fan of one, you haven't met like the other, like, oh, like these are like their friends, like I'm gonna like check them out, like that's like a cool thing there. But on like the other side, it's like we have made legitimate friends through like, hey, you don't know these botch guys, but we're doing Blood Feud with them. You guys want to like tag in? And we're just like, all right, sure. And like, we had like seen botch before, but we had not like met. And that was like our actual like formal meeting. Where it was like, oh, these guys are cool. These guys are awesome. Which like they're very debaucherous on stage, but they're also like genuinely like really really cool dudes, and we wouldn't have gotten that without like the actual like meeting. We're like, oh, like these guys rule. These guys are awesome.
Very cool. So you're getting Ad Inc. kicked out, so you can take their slot. Is that okay?
We absolutely adore Ad Inc. as well. I know I haven't talked a lot about them. They haven't like come up in conversation, but like Ad Inc. and Botched, both big hearts. Both big hearts for our buds.
Or the millennial, not the middle, the Gen Z.
Gen Z. I can't do the Gen Z heart. My fingers don't go that way. I can do this. I can switch in between crossing fingers. I can't do Gen Z heart. I can't do it.
Millennial heart and then Gen Z heart. Yeah, that one.
Yeah, because we have to make it harder. That's yeah cool.
This is hard.
Let's reinvent the wheel. So speaking of reinventing things, tell us about where we can find your podcast.
Drew, do you want to do it? Do you think you can?
Nope. I am not the one with the brain cells.
We are at every podcatcher that is out there. Take your pick. We should be there. If we're not, let me know, because that's a problem and that needs to fix itself. But social media, generally Agents of Damned, Agents of D, or at AOD, depending on if certain social media sites don't like the word damned, even if it is obviously denoted as an acronym. But you can find us basically anywhere that you can listen to podcasts. And we are releasing bi-weekly every other Friday, or if you're a patron, you get stuff a week early.
Awesome. Is there anywhere they can do you want to put out any kind of personal things like on Twitter, X, whatever, or just find the podcast, find their site, we'll be good?
Well, so Drew is easier to access at Discord because he is bad about social media. If he's on social media, it's because I told him, hey, go respond to someone there. But you can find me pretty much anywhere at Greekachu. I'm on, I think, all of them still, although I'm less reactive on X since it kind of started dying. But basically anywhere you can find me, I'm at Greekachu. And Drew, where he is online on social medias, is Liger00.
Mm-hmm. And I'll finish by asking a question, and I'm going to say this, you can fully say like, no, this is not like, don't do that. That's not cool. Would it be uncouth to plug like a partner of ours?
Plug away.
Adventure Dice, adventuredice.ca.
Okay.
Run by very lovely people who we know personally that we absolutely love. Really good dice. It is literally all of the dice that I roll as like a DM, and I rolled as a player since they started partnering with us, adventuredice.ca. Yes. And you can use code agents to get a discount on your order for anything except for the charity dice. Speaking of which, they do charity dice. They do a lot of like charity work and stuff like that. So I really like working with them, and I like shouting them out when I can because they're cool people and they make cool dice. And I like the shiny click clack math rocks.
Yes, Andre and Blair are very awesome, and they recently have adopted a son, and he's very cute, and that is their whole thing is running Adventure Dice. But if you are Canadian, then obviously there, but if you are in the US, the Canadian dollar is slightly better exchange rate for us, so get more dice for less money.
Well, there you go. Very good plug. I am not sure what we're going to do next week. We have open mic night for anybody who wants to come out and take over the stream here on twitch.tv/DC Digital Media. So that's in our Discord, which you can find at linktree/digital DC Digital Media. It's the .ee that always throws me off. It's linktr.ee/DC Digital Media, but you say Linktree. So you can find our Discord there and contact Tyra Burton, who is making the calendar for 2024. So we'd like to have more people on Behind the Track, which is what we're doing right now. And then you can also do open mic night and take over the stream. So you can find all my stuff personally at linktree/RGOP42. I do Behind the Stories and Wise and Nerdy, where fatherhood meets fandom. So until next time on the DragonCon Digital Media Track streaming here, I just totally drug that out because I lost exactly where I was trying to go. But I appreciate you tuning in and listening, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye.
All right.